Alright, so let's do the review on the Planet Eclipse LV1. Now, it's not really a secret that, you know, I haven't really been, for my personal playing style, using a lot of pop-it guns, probably since about 2006 or 2007, once, you know, spool valve guns kind of came about. For me, when I grip my guns, I tend to like to be able to wrap my thumb over the top of the barrel. And it feels like it gives me a little bit more leverage and gets my hand up higher, closer to the loader, which is probably part of the heaviest part of the gun when you're trying to snap shoot and stuff like that. So ever since pretty much after the Alias, I haven't really used a lot of pop-it guns. So I mean, I've always, you know, with the Ego, I've always had a lot of respect for the Ego, you know, and I know that it's been a great shooter for tons and tons of people. It's been a great seller for Planet Eclipse. If you know, a lot of people that maybe recently just started the sport, I mean, they didn't come out with the Geo until, was that probably 2008, I think, 2009, so probably 5 or 6 years, Planet Eclipse was nothing but a pop-it gun company. But, you know, probably the Alias was probably 2004, 2005, maybe a little bit of 2006. That was probably my last time I was really using a pop-it gun. I just, you know, the LPR for me just kind of gets in the way on most pop-it valve guns. And as you can see here, with the new Planet Eclipse LV1, what they did was they took the LPR and they moved it inside of the gun. So, you know, I wasn't really, when I heard Planet Eclipse was coming out with the new Ego, like, okay, here we go, Ego, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, I mean, never really was fans of any of those. I mean, I thought they were good shooting guns, just for not for my personal taste. Now all of a sudden they come out with this one, this LV1, and the first thing you notice is there's no LPR sticking out of the front of the gun, which that right there started getting me excited about the gun. You know, then a lot of people were getting, you know, I saw the reviews on the comments online. They didn't like the Macroline, the hose and stuff like that. But here's the deal with this Macroline. I really like how they designed this Macroline for a couple of reasons. If you've ever used any of the other Macroline-less guns where it goes up, you know, where the Macroline goes up through the gun. This includes the Vapor, the Lux, the G6R. I mean, you think of all of the, you know, all of the guns that are out there right now that use Macroline. A lot of them, they have the airline that goes up through the grip frame. Now, the problem with that is if your grip frame screws loosen up just a little bit, or you dive and you tweak your grip frame, you know, left or right, what ends up happening is those O-rings don't seat properly for just, even if it's just a millisecond, and boom, you've got an air leak coming out of the side of your gun. Not that big of a deal if you have your rebuild kit there, but it can be a pain in the ass. You know, you dive into the snake or something like that, you tweak your grip frame just a little bit, and all of a sudden you get an air leak coming out of the side of your gun. You know, so it's one of those things that you've just got to get over when you're using, you know, it's a trade-off. Okay, you don't want, you know, external Macroline. Well, now you got to make sure that your grip frame screws are snug if you're using internal Macroline. Well, Planet Eclipse kind of did something in the middle. What they did was they ran the airline up through the grip frame and out through the trigger guard and into the regulator. And this seemed to be the most controversial thing, you know, ever. But everybody that I've brought this gun to, okay, I've been over to Blitzkrieg in Tampa, I've been over to Central Florida Paintball, I've let dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of people hold this thing. Not a single person that has had this thing, that's grabbed it with the tank on the back of it and held it, complained about the Macroline. As a matter of fact, most people said it's a good place for them to put it. You know, it's one of those things where it may look different when you look at the picture, but when you actually hold it in person, it's not in the way. It's not in the way any more or any less than if it had a standard, you know, hose or a standard 90-degree Macroline fitting coming out of it. As a matter of fact, one of the things that a lot of people failed to mention when they were bitching and crying about it is that because it's locked in place, you don't have to worry about it pivoting over to one side and then you try to straighten it out and now you're unscrewing your regulator a little bit. That happens with a lot of guns, okay? The die guns, that happens with a lot. I mean, there's lots of guns out there that have a have a 90-degree pivot that go into the ASA, and then, you know, it either pivots over to one side or pivots over to the other, and then you grab it with your wrist, and now you start unscrewing your reg, and now your reg is loose. And so the fact that it's a hard line there holds it in place. Your reg's not going to unscrew. You don't have to worry about it going to the left or going to the right, and it doesn't, you know, in terms of, you know, you lose half of this length is what you would have if you had a standard 90-degree fitting on there anyway. So people are, you know, what they're really bitching about is just this last little half an inch that goes into the trigger guard. But almost everybody that grabbed this thing, nobody complained about that. I think that's just people just splitting hairs. You want things that are new. You want paintball companies to come out with stuff that's new. Well, they are, okay? So if you want to keep bitching about things that are new that come out in paintball, well, they're just not going to come out with anything new. I personally really I think it's a very clever design. It's really cool. Plus, it drives me crazy when I get that pivot line. I actually will intentionally cut my Macroline, I mean, almost perfectly to the point where it's almost short, just to make sure that my fitting doesn't, pivot to one side or the other if I've got a gun that does that. So let's go ahead and get the camera in closer here, and we'll start taking this thing apart. You'll see it's very easy to take apart, not much different than the previous Egos for about 90% of the disassembly, and we'll go out and do an efficiency test. Okay, and we didn't get much into the packaging. There's not much really different about the package. You got the color manual that's over there. We've got, nice little Allen key set. Planet Eclipse packaging is so good, it's actually getting to the point where, people come to expect it, and there's really not much else to say about it. It's phenomenal. The biggest thing that you're going to notice inside here is that the gun comes with 2 different rams. Now, here's how I would handle this. Go to the chronograph, stick 1 ram in there, see what the gun chronograph's at. Then take that, degas your gun, put the other ram in there. Whichever one chrono's higher, just stick with that one. Okay, it's going to allow you to shoot at a lower pressure. It's going to make your gun a little bit quieter. That's how I would handle the 2 rams that come in the box. Okay. Now let's go ahead and, before we take the gun apart, let's go ahead and weigh it. Let's see here. Okay, so it looks like it's weighing in at 2 pounds, 1 ounce. 2 pounds, 1 ounce. And let's go ahead and unscrew the most controversial part. Now what happens here is this part pivots and it basically screws itself down. So you just need to just hold this back piece here and out it comes. And basically what happens here is this kind of unscrews itself apart or together, and it's got O-rings on both sides. Let's go ahead and unscrew the reg. And then I'm gonna get my clean microfiber. Now to take apart the reg, 99% of your maintenance, all you need to do is just remove the piston. All you gotta do is just give it a gentle tap on the table, and out comes your piston, and then you can take your favorite lube, whatever that might be, lube your piston, put it back together again. Very simple. Very rarely are you going to ever have to get into the adjustment screw. Maybe after 50, 60 cases you may need to get in there, but not that big of a deal. Now this piece right here, as you saw, basically you just pull it right off. This is a piece of rubber. It's a rubber coating. Now to get the LPR and to get to the poppet, what you need to do here is it's got a retention clip that holds this whole assembly in place. So you can either take an Allen key if you want to, and go up inside there. You can use a pair of like needle nose pliers if you want. Probably the Allen key is probably the better way, so you don't have to scratch it. Hold this here because it is spring loaded. Pull out this retention clip. Okay, you can see that retention clip. And out comes the LPR. And what we'll do is, let's reach in here really quick. There's the LPR piston, and out comes the poppet. So very, very simple. Unscrew the reg, pull the clip out, and you're good to go. And obviously taking apart the ram, unscrew it out of the back, lift the bolt, Take that same Allen key you used to, and there's your RAM. So very, very quick and easy to disassemble the LV1. Very, very fast. So let's go ahead and we'll put it back together really quickly. Now I'm not going to get into that little lever that's up at the front, in front of the poppet, that and you know, that goes in between the valve and the thing. I can, you know, it's one of those things that you don't really ever have to mess with, but it's there. You can look in the manual and you can see that it's there. We're gonna go ahead and put the poppet back in. Actually, let's go ahead and put the LPR in first. There we go. Let's put the rubber sleeve over it. All right, now we put on the hard line. There we go. And we're all set. Let's go ahead and go out and do an efficiency test, and then we'll come back for the conclusion. All right, we're about to do the efficiency test on the Eclipse LV1. And here is the pressure. We're sitting just over 4,200 PSI. And let's take a tank temperature reading. 102 and a half it looks like. Looks like we're sitting right around in the mid 290s. Looks like almost 8 pods. Thank you. Now let's talk about, let's get into our conclusion here. What do I think about the gun? I really like it. I mean, it's okay, in the hands, if you just close your eyes and you put it in your hands, it's going to feel like you're holding a spool valve gun. Now, that's not a bad thing. The biggest thing you're just going to notice is that you don't have the LPR here. And what used to drive me crazy was that little torpedo plug. But, you don't have an LPR here that, causes your hand to only go up to a certain point or something like that. The fact that you can just grip it from the front, if you want to grip it a little bit lower, you can. And a lot of people like to grip it a little bit lower. I mean, it's all personal preference. I like to grip it up a little higher, put my thumb over the top. But if you grip it in your hands, it just feels like you're holding a spool valve gun. The front is just really nicely cleaned up. It contours right inside the fingers really nicely. And the most important thing is, how does it shoot? I got to tell you, and this is one hell of a compliment. If you've ever shot an Alias with a volumizer on it, okay, something like this. Okay, this is an old Bob, this is a Bob Long edition Alias. It's got the Bob Long mini volumizer on it. You ever shot an old Alias or even an old Intimidator with a volumizer on it, where you used to be able to get the pressure down like 140 psi, somewhere around there? That really soft shot, that's what it feels like. Okay, it does not shoot anything like an Ego, and I've got to stress that, okay, because I'm not, in terms of, I like Egos for what they are, but for me, my personal preference, I'm not a big fan of them, when I'm out there shooting and stuff like that. This doesn't shoot anything like an Ego. It just doesn't. And every person that I let shoot this gun, I probably demoed out probably 2 cases of paint. Thank you very much, Empire. But I probably demoed out 2 cases of paint, letting people shoot this thing, shooting at the chronograph, shooting it at the field, borrowing it, testing it. I mean, every time I'd go to a group of people, I'd come back with no pods. No paint in my pods, because everybody was sitting there shooting the hell out of this thing, and nobody, not once, said, "Wow, that gun really, that gun's a jackhammer," or "Wow, that gun really kicks really hard." I mean, most people, they shot it and they're like, "What's it chronoing at? Like 220?" No, it's chronoing like 295. That's what it feels like. It feels like the gun's shooting at like 220 feet per second. It's actually shooting at like 295. Okay, it's just very, very soft. Just you see the bolt going back and forth. As a matter of fact, if this bolt pin wasn't even there, you'd probably think you were shooting a spool valve gun. If this, if you covered all this up and you had no bolt and you just saw the ball come out, that's what it feels like. It shoots very, very soft. It does not shoot like any Ego I've ever shot. And I've really got to emphasize that, because there's a lot of people out there that, oh, it's just going to be another Ego, but that lever that they put inside there that goes in between the ram and the poppet, they put a lever inside there. You can see it in the animations. They've got it in the Planet Eclipse official video. They've got it in the manual. That little lever, whatever that thing does, is you do not feel that smack that you would expect to feel when the ram hits the poppet. I mean, it just like I said, it just feels like the bolt goes forward and the ball comes out. It shoots and feels a lot like a spool valve gun. It's and I love how high the grip frame is. The back of your hand is literally, just below the barrel. So when you're out there shooting, so it doesn't feel like your hand is really low for, it's just, they did a really good job on this. I mean, they really, really did a good job on this. And maybe I'm overpraising this because I really like, I like spool valve guns. That's been my personal favorite type of guns in the past few years for tournaments and stuff like that. But they made a poppet gun shoot as smooth as a spool valve gun. And that is not an easy thing to do. But we, also tested out some very brittle paint. We were shooting Evil at the last CFPS. A lot of our guns were breaking paint. This gun did not break any paint. My boy Miles was using it, and he's our back player, and he shot pod after pod after pod of Evil through it. Pretty brittle paint, and he didn't break a single ball in it. My ex broke a ball. A couple other guns broke balls, but he should break a single ball with this thing. But it's a smoking gun. I definitely, if you're thinking about getting one of these guns, get on the back order list, because I know the back order list is huge right now. Right now with it being, we're at, April, about to get into May of 2013. The back order list is huge right now. And, it could be, several months before you get yours in, just based on how many people have already bought this thing already. But, Planet Eclipse did a really, really good job on this. This, it was all, I don't want to call it a disservice, because the Eagle's been a great seller, but it doesn't shoot like an Ego. So if you before you pick this gun up, you really need to take all of your prejudices and stuff like that, and your thoughts on an Ego, and set it aside and just judge this gun for what it is, because it does not shoot like any Ego I've ever shot. It just does, the vibration's not there, the kick is not there. It's not a jackhammer like most Egos are. It just poof, and the ball comes out. And it's really pleasant for especially considering it's a pop-it gun. So I think that's about all I got to say about the Planet Eclipse LV1. It was an extremely impressive gun to shoot. Thanks for tuning in.